Hey, ¿qué tal amigos? Stuart here from Spain Speaks. Now today we're going to be talking about Spain and banks. A lot of you are probably considering coming to Spain and you're looking to put your money into a place more or less that is safe, and you want to know what type of bank Spain has. Basically, to give you a quick rundown, Spain has two types of banks. It has big ones and it has small ones. Historically, there were two different types of banks in the sense that there were savings banks and there were private banks. The savings banks were run by the autonomous communities, or in other words, politicians, and the private banks are in the hands of various families. For example, Banco Santander is in the hands of the Botín family, and a couple of the other banks are also in the hands of powerful families. Now, the biggest banks in Spain, you have number one is Banco Santander, or Banco de Santander. I'm not sure what you call this, Santander Bank basically. The second biggest bank in Spain is BBVA. The third biggest bank is CaixaBank. The fourth biggest bank is Bankia. And then it goes down. You've got Banco Popular, you've got Bankinter, and then you go down into the smaller banks as well. Now, Banco de Santander is a bank which has merged with a lot of other banks. BBVA also the same. BBVA originally started off as the Banco de Bilbao, then it became Banco Bilbao Vizcaya, then it became Banco Bilbao Vizcaya Argentaria. So it was a joining together of 4 or 5 different banks. And in the recent banking crisis in Spain, BBVA has also absorbed a couple of the other smaller cajas, as they call them here, the savings banks, and it's become probably even bigger in size. CaixaBank also. CaixaBank was originally a Caja de Ahorros, a savings bank, and it became a bank maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it's one of the strongest banks. It's based in Catalonia, but it has national coverage. It's one of the banks that I use. You've got Banco Santander, which I said is the biggest bank in Spain. Banco Santander is also the result of different banks merging. Banco Santander first bought Central Hispano, which was a bank which was another traditional Spanish bank. Then it bought a bank called Banesto, because Banesto went through a financial scandal back in the 1990s, so that also ended up in the hands of Banco Santander. And Banco Santander is perhaps Spain's most international bank, along with BBVA. Both of those banks have been able to spread their wings internationally. So if I were coming to Spain, where would I put my money now? Well, obviously I'd choose one of the bigger banks, obviously either Banco Santander or BBVA, either one of those two. CaixaBank is also quite good. I do operate with CaixaBank. I operate with Banco Santander as well, and I also have an account with a bank called ING, which is, as you probably know, an online bank. That's also another alternative nowadays, is are the online banks. There's various ones. You've got ING, you've got a couple of other online banks as well, and they also are an opportunity. The Spanish banking sector at the moment is also going through a transformation. It's going through a restructuring process. Branches are closing down left, right and centre. Banks are laying off workers. Basically, the industry is shrinking in size. It's still trying to digest the boom times of 2005, 6, 7, 8, when the economy was out of control because of construction, and obviously the banks are still trying to digest that. Banco Popular is going through problems at the moment as well. They're trying to increase capital. Banco Santander had something similar last year or the year before. Basically, the banking sector is in a bit of a crisis at the moment. There is a chance that if you open a bank account today with a certain bank, in a couple of years that bank will have been absorbed by one of the bigger ones. That's also part of the process that's going on at the moment. There's another round of mergers that are going to come up, and a lot of these smaller banks are going to be sucked into the big ones, so keep that in mind as well. If you're looking for a smaller bank, Smaller bank in Spain. You've still got the option of some of the smaller groups of former savings banks which joined together to become private banks. There's some of those, although that could be a little bit dodgy as well. CaixaBank, it's a fairly big bank, works very well. It has a good online service. Basically, I mean, it's up to you. There's a lot of choice. Is language going to be a problem when you open a bank account? Well, if you're in a big city like Madrid, Barcelona, perhaps you're not going to find anybody who speaks English. If you're in one of the coastal areas, the banks do cater for expats. I know that banks like Santander and BBVA cater to expats by having staff that speak English or German. In Palma de Mallorca, I know that to be a fact. Also in the Levante coast, Andalusia, as I said, all of those areas do cater to the expats. So keep that in mind when you're opening a bank account as well. Now, historically, Spain has been a country that's always had a lot of branches. In fact, one of the things you'll probably notice, or you have noticed if you've been to Spain, is the amount of branches that you see at a street level. It's not uncommon to see in one street 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 branches, and sometimes even two of the same bank will be within 100 meters of each other, which is absolutely crazy in today's times. These banks do operate with internet, and internet banking in Spain is reasonably good, but still they have this tendency to think that people need to have a bank virtually next to their home in order for people to become loyal customers. That is changing, as I just mentioned. That is changing. Bank branches are reducing and will probably get more to levels that I'm used to. For example, in Australia went through this transformation back in the early 1990s where branches just disappeared and they all became super bank branches in shopping centres. So all of the local branches seemed to disappear back in the 1990s. That is slowly starting to happen here now. And although the internet banking sector is quite good, you can do virtual everything, there are times when you will need to physically go to a branch. Of course, not only to get out cash from the ATM machine, but also to do things like close a bank account or even open a bank account. I think still at this particular moment in time, it's easier to do it still through the branch network. Are branches friendly here in Spain? Well, not overly so. It's one of those places that I really never like going to. I never like going to a branch for some reason. There's always queues. There's always, the service is quite slow. It takes a long time to get basic things done. It can be a bit of a nightmare. Look at the options that they give you to do banking online. Some of the online banks, ING for example, do operate. I mean, they only have 2 or 3 branches in Madrid, so virtually everything needs to be done online with those banks, so that could be an alternative as well. So keep that in mind when you're using Spanish banks. But in general, Spanish banking system at the moment seems to be okay. It's going to change a lot more in the future, perhaps not from a customer or client point of view so much. We probably will notice that branches start to disappear, and the typical bank branch that used to exist has become a bar or a restaurant or something. That's probably going to happen. Don't think Spain is going to go through another financial crisis like we had in 2009, 10, 11. I don't think we're going to go through that again just yet. It could happen in the future, who knows, and a lot more bank mergers. So that's about it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the section below, and I'll see you in the next vlog. Hasta luego.